Sam Anthony says the mainstream media is dead. He may not be too far off. In fact, he told me that the average age of Fox viewers was 72 years old. I fact-checked him. He was wrong. It's 70. My gosh, what's going on here? Welcome to the truth.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
Sure, Sam. So tell us why, and I think you are on the low side on broadcast media. Grok says it's actually probably more like 2 million, but for 25 to 50-year-olds, even still, that's way down from where we were even 5 years ago. Well, why are people turning away from mainstream media?
They have options. A lot of people think it's because they're not telling the truth, which could be. But back in 1990, we had, 5 options? ABC, NBC, CNN, Fox, maybe MSNBC. Today, YouTube has 60 million channels. There's Rumble, there's Spotify, there's BitChute, there's TikTok, there's Instagram. There's literally millions of people that you can follow and watch. And there's still a demand for news. It's just consumption has changed, right? And the older demographic still watches, what they're accustomed to, but it's the younger generation. Nobody's following up with their footsteps.
Well, it really just flabbergasted me when I saw. I mean, I am a Fox consumer, and I watch Maria Bartiromo just about every morning, and I watch Fox and Friends on Saturdays and Sundays, and then I watch Brett Baer in the evenings. So I guess I'm among that aging and declining demographic that watch Fox. I was really surprised by that.
Yeah. So remember, there's still a demand. It's just how people consume it has changed. So you and I grew up in a different era, and the way we consumed information was totally different. I have neighbors of mine that are in their 80s, and they watch cable news. They don't even get on the internet. They have no interest in it. So they're not privy to alternative news. But look, YouTube created a technology where anybody can become a broadcast journalist. You don't even have to go to broadcast journalism school. Did you know that?
I did know that because I did not go to broadcast journalism school, and we've got a pretty good YouTube channel going right now, but we'd like to grow it, and I don't think YouTube really likes our content, so we're throttled. They don't let us expand. We started our YouTube channel 3 years ago, and we've got 2,000 viewers. We started our Getter channel 3 months ago, and we've got 2,000 subscribers. So that tells you something, I think.
There you go. So it's the messaging they don't like.
So you've got an alternative to this, and you're growing like a weed.
Right, because remember, everything is moving to platforms, right? So if you're talking YouTube, I believe they have 61 million active channels. Rumble has 250,000. I never looked up Instagram or TikTok, but they're in the millions.
Yeah.
And what happens is the money goes where the people are. So, with literally tens of millions of people on these platforms, it drives all this traffic, which attracts ad revenue. So this is why the legacy media is not going to survive. It's because all the people are on platforms. What I do, a lot of people think I'm in the news business because we have a platform called yournews.com, and when you log in, it geolocates you. It doesn't matter if you live in Miami, Chicago, Phoenix, LA, it'll log into that city, so it's going to look like the LA Times on steroids. I'm in every city in the United States, so what we have is scale. But at the end of the day, I'm not in the news business, I'm in the platform business. We are a news content distribution platform. So we serve news to a city, to a county, to a market, state, regional, or national. And we even have a world news section. Current amount of content creators is just over 5,700 news reporters throughout the United States and around the globe, providing local news. It sounds like a lot, right? But let me tell you, because it's so broad in scope, I have within lifestyle, I have home and garden, food and wine, travel, I have faith, I'm trying to try and think of all science and technology, I have sports, hockey, basketball, baseball, football, polo, it's endless, right? All these different categories, business, entertainment. So the content creators, nobody tells them you're going to be reporting this. Everybody has a passion for something. and they report on what's exciting to them. So I was, as we were talking earlier, the tennis that was going on in Doha about a week ago, or I think it was about a week ago, I have news reporters in Doha that were covering all those stories and submitting it to me. It's amazing.
Well, you know where I get a lot of my local news? Next door neighbor. I'll get a notification. Oh, there's so many cops at the public store on Southern Boulevard. What's going on? And then 10 people will respond with what's going on at the public on Southern Boulevard. Things have really changed since I was a kid, and the town I grew up in deep in the South in Macon, Georgia, WBML. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but I can remember WBML from 45 years ago. Had roving reporters, and when a fire engine went out or a cop or an ambulance, they would follow them to the scene and report live on the scene of what was going on. Now you got next door neighbor doing that.
Well, there's just
and
people.
Your channel.
Well, right, but they're driving by. But let me tell you what's happening. So you saw the stuff that Nick Shirley broke, right?
Yeah, sure.
Did Nick Shirley go to journalism school?
I have no idea.
He did not.
I don't think he's been to school at all. I think he's 20, or is he 23? I think he's 20. I just met him at Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, you did?
6 weeks ago. Nice kid, super nice, and really mature beyond his years. And when you talk to him, he's very stoic. He doesn't talk a lot, but and he's relatively quiet when you speak with him, but he's very, very polite, and seems to me to be extremely smart. But he and his mom started this when he was 14, and just in a matter of 6 years, he's blown up into an international figure. And yes, Minnesota fueled the fire, but he got the Citizens Journalism Award from James O'Keefe's organization. They give an award to citizen journalists, basically YouTubers, and he won the award. So I was there and was able to applaud for him. But it's amazing that it took a 20-year-old to go uncover the fraud in Minnesota.
John, so just so you know, on LinkedIn Navigator, which is the platform I use for marketing, there's about 500,000 people that call themselves freelance journalists. There's 200,000 student journalists, and they're all part of the downsizing of the mainstream media. They have nowhere to go. So if you want to know why the mainstream media is not covering that stuff, it's because the Palm Beach Post, the last time I had a conversation with somebody over at the Post, which was a big organization 20 years ago if you were living here, they have 20 news reporters or less. 20. It's because all the money's dried up because it's all going to the platforms where the people are. So somebody like Nick Shirley, that's proof that everything is moving to citizen journalism. That is absolute proof. And then what we do, that was a local story because every story starts somewhere, right? So that was a Minneapolis story, but because of the size of the $19 billion in fraud, it, gained national attention. But there's a lot of stuff that my journalists are covering that are not really considered national news, that are local stuff, that they're breaking stories throughout the United States, but only the people in Greensboro, South Carolina care maybe, right? So it could be their sports, politics, business. It's where everything is headed.
So how many people are on yournews.com? How many consumers?
Total viewership last month was well over 1 million.
So have you monetized it?
Yeah, so we have...
How are you making money?
So we make money off of advertisers, but we have a monetization model for news reporters. So this is where everything's headed. You know how YouTube monetizes people, Rumble monetizes people, X monetizes people. What's the other ones? Facebook even has a monetization model.
Sure.
Well, we have a monetization model, and the way it works is the content creators sign up, they create an account. Once they get approved as a monetized journalist, they submit their work. There's an approval process. So we don't fact check anything because how could I possibly know what happened in Schaumburg, Illinois at that city council meeting, right? But the only thing a journalist has is their credibility. It's like you. If you were lying to the public, how fast would they tune out on you.
Pretty
right?
but as fast as they do the mainstream media.
Exactly. So we let the public, if somebody's lying, the public will let us know, and then we'll get rid of them. So it's really a true marketplace with free speech. The difference in our niche, I guess you could say, is the local news. It's the church bake sale. It's the city council meeting. It's the high school football game. It's the stuff that really isn't relevant on an X platform or, on a YouTube. We're talking local news, and 99% of my content is local news all over the United States and non-political.
Isn't that interesting?
I
probably wouldn't do so good on your platform.
Oh my God.
We're political.
Oh yeah, but I have a multimedia channel where we air Lindell TV. I've got Patriot TV listed on there, and then I've got about 300 conservative podcasters that distribute content on our platform via the embed codes from Rumble. So the audience we have, and keep in mind, I don't believe in censorship. So I believe even if I disagree with your opinion, we're gonna run it, and we don't attract a lot of liberal content. I would prefer to, because my personal opinion is I think both sides need to be heard and the public needs to decide. But I'm sure as we scale and get bigger and you get to 10 and 20 and 50,000 content creators, people are going to come in and you're going to start pushing their own agenda.
For sure.
Right? I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. So my audience right now, probably 99% conservative. And
so who do you sell advertising to, and how do you get the advertising?
So it's all self-service. So you could be Joe's Pizza in Portland, Oregon, and you could buy an ad, and you could drill down to one specific zip code, and you could target around a specific type of content. So when you talk scale, we'll think of the paper here because we're both in Palm Beach County, right? So you have the Palm Beach Post. Well, they have a website. So they have a sports section, right? Mm-hmm. However many ads they could put on their sports section, John, I could do in one zip code. It's like having 70,000 different editions. Ads are on a best bid basis, meaning national ads run at a penny, but local ads, hyper local, are a dime. It's like literally 10 times the money. But how many people read on Clematis Street, mm-hmm. right? There might have been 10 people that saw your ad, your bill's $1. But it's targeted, is what I'm getting at.
And so you pay based on how many people click on it?
How many people view. So we're not a click-through model.
Well, how do you know when somebody's viewed an ad?
Well, because when the advertiser selects the content they want to run around and the geography, which could be a city or a zip code or multiple zip codes, mm-hmm. when somebody queries that page, we know where you live because of your IP address. And then when your ad pulls, it will deduct whatever your rate is, whether it's 1 cent, 2 cents, 10 cents. So they prepay in advance. It's like, remember the prepaid phone cards, where you have $10 in there, mm-hmm. and it draws down off your account. So if you have $1 in usage today and you had $10 in your account, you now have $9.
That is fascinating. How did you come up with this idea?
Oh my God. So years ago, me and a couple guys believed that the newspaper industry was going to collapse.
Yes.
And we set out to build a platform to replace it. Now, I'm going to share something with you because at the time, I did not believe the media was lying. That was not why we were doing this. Mm-hmm. And we failed miserably. And we had a platform. It wasn't a zip code driven platform at the time. It was city specific, and we were trying to figure the whole things out. I ended up getting another partner, and this may resonate with you. The trick is, how do you get local news in every city in America, and how do you do it cost effectively? Well, all these local radio stations, the independents that have news stringers? Well, radio has distribution, could be, depending on the size of the stick, right? It could, be 25 miles, 50, 100 miles, depending on the signal. And radio gets a small piece of the ad pie because 99% of the businesses are moms and pops that do business in a small geography, so they buy the Valpaks and the local newspaper. Well, what our platform did, because they all have a website, but their website is an extension of their signal. So we created, how Fox, CBS, ABC, they all have the national networks with affiliates. I built an organization of affiliates across the United States of all independent radio stations providing local news in their DMAs, right? And what it did was it attracted a new customer base that would never buy from them. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, one year, I believe it was in 2000, maybe 15 or 17, I started to lose a lot of affiliates, the radio stations, and I know them all. And I called them and I said, well, what's going on? And they said, well, I'm going to tell you who the first guy to go is, the news director, because they're not producing any money, right? So they have to switch that part of the station to something, they buy the content or they plug in somebody else. And those were the first people to go. So they started to get rid of the stringers and the news directors. And a couple of them told me, you better change your model, because we're not going to be around in the future. He goes, Sam, I own 3 stations. The only reason I listen to radio is because I own them. Otherwise, I'd be listening to Sirius radio. That's what he told me. And I said, you got to be kidding me. So I imagine, all your customers have cancer, right? So basically, once they're gone, I'm gone. And so one day I just had this epiphany. I said, what if we go to a monetization model? Well, that required ripping the engine out and rebuilding the whole thing so that you could have content creators that would actually be monetized. So we did it. Then we had to test it. And this is going back probably maybe 5-6 years ago. And we started doing that, and it worked. Now, this is still in its infancy because newspapers were still going well. And by the way, this would have been Trump. It was after Trump won the election, but it was in 2016, I think. Was that when Trump won? 2016, yeah, right? Yeah. So that's when I realized that the mainstream media was actually lying when they went after Trump and started manufacturing stuff, because they had me convinced he wasn't going to win, right? Because I'm a mainstream. Right. I'm watching Fox News just like you, and I'm like, oh, he don't have a chance. All the polls are against him, and it turns out once he won, that everybody went after him. I'm not talking Fox, but I'm talking about the other networks. All of a sudden, he was the devil, right? And I went, what the hell is this? So then I realized what we're doing is really important, because at the end of the day, it's really the media is the reason we're in the mess we're in today. I don't know if you believe that or not, but that's my view. I think it's the media's fault, because if they were calling everything the way it really was supposed to be, none of this stuff would have existed.
So I don't know if you were asking me a question or just a rhetorical comment, but my personal belief is that our federal government is rotten to its core.
Completely.
And I think that most of the rot is in the intelligence community, who operate off the books. Mm-hmm. They have no oversight, they have no one to report to, and they have basically unlimited amounts of funds. I don't think everybody who works in the intelligence is bad. I think that probably, I don't know what percent, I'm going to say 85 or 90, just a wild guess, are good. Mm-hmm. But there are 10 or 15% with power that are evil. I think they killed our 35th president. I think they had something to do with 9/11. I'm not sure what. We know they should have known or had reason to have prior knowledge of the attack. No one has satisfactorily explained the implosion of Building 7, which happened 6 hours after the Twin Towers collapsed. I think that Butler, Pennsylvania, have all the fingerprints of intelligence on the person who tried to assassinate President Trump. It's the same storyline. Mm-hmm. Oh, a crazed, lonely assassin living in Mama's basement. And I don't even think it was Thomas Matthew Crooks. I think more than likely it was Maxwell Urich, but that's a subject for another day. But our listeners have heard it; they're familiar with it. I don't believe that this Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. The 30-06, for starters, would have left massive trauma on the back of Charlie's head. There was not even an exit wound. Forget no massive trauma. There was no wound on the back of Charlie's neck. So I have become cynical and suspicious of our own federal government, I think with good reason. Now, the media, I think they're in on it. I don't think they're in on it ideologically or for the same reasons. I just think they're paid off. We know that Twitter got $3.4 million from the FBI to censor people during COVID if they talked out about bad about the vaccines. Now, why would our own federal government censor someone if they raise questions about the vaccine. That makes no sense to me at all. But we know it happened. That's indisputable. We know that Politico collects $10 million a year from our federal government for subscriptions that they sell at the rate of $75,000 to $100,000 per subscription to people in the federal government. It adds up to $10 million. Now, if you're giving me $10 million and I'm a weak milk toast, I can't say the word that comes to mind on the radio, which we're doing this interview for. You can fill in the blank. I might take the 10 mil and tell you what they tell me to tell you. No one's offered me any money because they know that it's not going to happen. So that's my paradigm. It is not supported with, I don't have the absolute smoking gun, but we've got more than enough circumstantial evidence to convict somebody of murder.
I completely agree with you. That's my point. And
well, on that, you can come back now.
Well, in 1985, he's spot on. In 1985, there was over 500 independent news outlets. Today, there are 6 institutions that control the legacy media, and they're basically paid propaganda. It's much easier to control 6 people than it is to control 500. So you hit it right on the head.
Yeah, 100%.
The media, if the media was actually telling the truth, none of this would have been able to happen because it would have enraged people. So it all stems from the government who got control of the media. And this is where we come in with your news. And pay attention to this, because you've seen the Sinclair Broadcasting with the 30 or 40 TVs all saying the same thing at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. The threat to our democracy. Mm-hmm. That's called centralized news. It all comes down from one source.
Who is the source?
Well, the guy
who is the puppet master? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, we don't know that exactly, but it's probably the federal government who pushes the agenda to whatever it is.
Well, I don't think there's any question that it's some element of the federal government, but I'm trying to identify specifically who that person or those people are.
Well, that one I don't know, but remember this: what we're going to shift to is going to be a platform that allows free speech everywhere, this hyper-local news platform like what we do. But what I do completely decentralizes the news business, and it democratizes who gets to say it. So but here's the thing. It's not just national, it's local. Because think of all the corruption. It has to start somewhere, right? You could have the mayor of Omaha, Nebraska that could be stealing stuff, right? And there's inside people that know about it. Well, all of a sudden, that stuff's going to be exposed.
Sure.
I'm not going to stop it. If the journalist reports it, we're just a platform. We're going to allow that to happen. So it's going to uncover a lot of rot. And this is where everything is headed. So there's 2 ways to solve this problem. There's actually 3. One is shut off the federal government for spending a nickel, and all the bank robbers will go. Because as far as I'm concerned, the Democratic Party is a complete criminal organization.
Yeah,
complete criminal.
I think they have embraced that.
Oh yeah.
I don't even think they push back on the notion.
Okay, name one thing they have to counter Trump that's an idea to say we need to do it this way. They don't. They're basically saying stop him from taking the money we're supposed to steal. Mm-hmm. That's all they're doing. So
that's basically right.
If you shut down all the money, you can't give it to anybody for anything, they'll all leave. There's no reason to be there. They'll go to the states where they could steal it. California have any openings? That's what they'll do. This is easy, so that's the first way. Second way is
I think California is fully employed in the corruption industry.
Oh yeah, no.
I don't think they have any openings now.
Yeah, I was watching something today. It was a clip, and so the woman that was talking said, and I'm guessing they were, because it was only like a 2-minute clip. They were talking about, of the 246 or 7 billion they take in tax revenue. I'm assuming it's for the income tax for if you live in the state. That's what I'm thinking they're talking. Are you ready for this? 200 people pay 47% of that number. 200. Because they're talking about how they need to pay their fair share. And this was about the millionaire tax that they're either passed or they're going to pass.
Yes.
Those 200 people are going to leave, which means they just immediately lost almost 50% of the revenue coming in the door.
It can't happen fast enough for me.
Oh, I want to see
bring it. But and what did they spend? $20 billion on the high-speed rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and they built 1 mile so far.
That's it.
I mean, what more do you need to know?
They need 200 trillion to finish it.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either.
I don't think it's going to happen.
So the good news is, if you want to get rid of the problem, you really have to go to a citizen-powered press where it's completely decentralized. And so like I was saying, YouTube, you don't have to be a journalist or go to journalism school to be a YouTuber, and the marketplace decides. With our platform, anybody can sign up to be a citizen journalist, and they can go report news. I'll give you an example. It could be your neighbor, right? Somebody you know that goes to the city council meeting, that comes back, writes a story, and shares it with everybody in the community. That's where it's all headed. It's the Nick Shirleys of the world. But on a local level, we could, because of our scale, I'm guessing we have 20,000 cities, so you're talking, 50 people a city with all the different categories, because not everybody likes politics.
Sure.
Some people like fashion, and they want to talk about...
Most people don't like politics. No. It's pretty far down their list of priorities, frankly.
Exactly.
But they need to pay attention, because it's their lives, their children's lives, and their grandchildren's lives that we're talking about.
John, I have people that report strictly on Formula One. Formula One. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, I've seen Formula One races before, but this is their passion. And there's an audience of people that watch Formula One.
So I got to ask you one more question before we wrap up.
Sure.
I know you're a golf aficionado, and you watch a lot of golf.
I do.
So what about the kid at the Riviera tournament this weekend? Did he cheat?
You know what? I didn't see anybody cheat. Explain what you mean? Because I watched it, but I was at my mother's house. I had to leave to come back, so I didn't get to watch.
Well, I just watched it for the first time last night, and so I did not watch the tournament. But supposedly Scottie Scheffler was down, I think, 2 strokes. This kid had a 7-shot lead going into the final day.
I saw that.
It narrowed to 2 shots. And supposedly he took his golf club and patted down with a lot of force the turf behind his ball. So he effectively teed up the shot. He ended up winning the tournament by 1 shot, but the penalty for altering the lie of your golf ball is 2 shots. So they're trying to decide whether Scottie Scheffler won the tournament.
And so somebody's reviewing that?
Oh, yeah.
I got to see that.
It is like... the earth is shuddering under this news within the PGA, because golf has been the one remaining sport where integrity really matters. Golfers have always prided themselves on assessing their own penalties if they violate a rule.
Patrick Reed.
There you go.
Like that, he did push that sand back. We watched him do it. Do you remember?
Yeah, I vaguely.
He had the club behind, and he was sliding sand back to prop the ball up. Like 3 times.
That's the same allegation, effectively, with this guy, except it's not sand. It's just turf, and he supposedly, and I didn't see the video of it, but he was mashing down the turf behind the ball.
Are you not
effectively puts it on?
Are you not allowed to do that?
No, you cannot alter the lie of your ball.
Well, I'll probably lose. I'll probably lose every because we just play on the weekends and we go.
Well,
play.
For one thing, you're not a professional
golfer,
and for the second thing, I mean, I don't know what's the stake. $2?
Yes, and we're probably gonna miss the green anyway. We'll make a bit of difference, but now that you said that, I have got to see that. Yeah.
Well, check it out.
I definitely will.
They say that this really could be the story of the century in the PGA golf world.
Was Scheffler second?
I believe so.
So that means Scheffler would win another one?
That would mean he could potentially win another
one. And they could, so once the ruling comes out, if it ruled that he did that, then there's this, God, what a shame.
Just like Tiger Woods in the Masters when he made an illegal drop on 15. His third shot hit the flag and ricocheted back into the water. And so he came back and dropped the ball, but he dropped it a club length behind where his divot was. Now, I thought that was legal. I thought that if you could put where your ball last crossed the margin of the hazard in line with where you hit the ball, you could move back to infinity. Well, evidently,
you can't.
In that case, you couldn't. Someone called CBS after they watched him hit the shot. He had, I think he parred the hole. His second attempt at, now he's lying 4, so that would be 5. He almost holed it out, so I guess he had a bogey. But then they assessed him a 2-shot penalty in the middle of the night. Later that night, the committee met and they said, yeah, that's a violation of the rule. It's a 2-shot penalty. So he lost his lead, and he lost that Masters by one shot. And that probably would have solidified him as the only person to have won, I think, 5 Masters.
Wow.
Player, Palmer, Nicklaus, and Tiger have each won 4 Masters. That would have been his 5th. That would have been history making.
And they always use a club length, right? They always take the driver and they are allowed a club length. He didn't go no closer to the hole.
No, he went further from the hole. But these people, this guy on the Golf Channel who I really don't like, he is such a smart aleck. He thinks he knows it all. But he was so vehement towards Tiger, saying he knew he was cheating. He's a disgusting, horrible human being. And he said that Tiger was so precise that he calibrated in his mind that if he hit the same shot over again, he might hit the pin. So he backed it up a yard so that he would land short of the pin, which actually he did. But I don't think that the guy is that precise, but maybe he is.
Nobody's that precise. I mean, he
well,
could have pulled it. Oh my God!
In any sense of the word, but anyway. Well, Sam, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the trip down to our new studio. I hope you've enjoyed your time as much as we've enjoyed having you.
This is fantastic.
Please come back soon and often. I want to keep the conversation going. And how do I sign up for your platform?
Yeah, so anybody that wants to become a citizen journalist, you go to yournews.com, you go to the bottom of the page, it'll say become a citizen journalist. You click that. A couple short videos you can watch explains it. Then there's an application. People fill that out. Once they get activated, they get instructions on how to use it. And this is ultimately, at the end of the day, what we do will become the next mainstream media.
Is Nick Shirley on your channel?
No, Nick isn't. I don't have his contact information, but I'm just going to let you know, John, every content creator only wants 2 things: broader distribution and monetization.
Hello.
That's it. There isn't a third for the audience. That's the only thing. What I provide is distribution and monetization. And because it's a platform, I could have millions of contributors. And I'm just going to tell you something. The next mainstream media is going to be a global hyper-local news platform. Like my next country we'll be opening is going to be Canada. Want to know why? Because I probably have 150 freaking content creators from Canada that are going, can you help us? So we'll be able to distribute content into specific cities, or we're going to set it up like a state, right? So it from the standpoint of it'll flow U.S. news in there with Canadian news. We have all the sports, right?
So if I want to watch the news from I don't know, pick a spot. Norman, Oklahoma. I can just go to your platform, look for Norman, Oklahoma.
Put in the zip code. It'll take you to Norman, and then just click local edition top stories, and there'll be your news. And I have literally thousands of news reporters covering news all over the United States. It's freaking amazing. And we keep adding them. So it's... I don't know if you know my background, but it's not journalism. People think, oh, he's a journalist, right? They talk. I go, I used to work for Lehman Brothers in Chicago years ago. So my background has been investment banking, capital raising, and this was just something. We believe that the newspapers are going to fail, and we set out to build a platform to replace the newspaper industry. Now it's gotten even bigger, and I never really realized how important this is. Because you can't we're truly a people-powered press. Like normally when you're building a platform like this, people do capital raising. It's why Silicon Valley exists, mm-hmm. right? So people go out and raise capital, with institutional money. And I went to have you ever been to a Reawaken America tour?
No.
So when you go there, like I did in Miami a couple times, there were 5,000 people. They're all people like us, right? They're all patriots, and they're there to see General Flynn and all those same people, right? And I said, these are my people. And somebody mentioned to me, you need to do something called an equity crowdfund. And so I'm thinking like Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe, right? I'm thinking I go, what the hell is that? They said, well, no, it's a security, but everybody can participate, but they're limited to the level. So you have to be an accredited investor in order to buy a private placement. but with equity crowdfunds, you don't.
Oh.
And so, like, for me, I have institutions that I personally know that I used to bring deals to, so I could bring deals to them. So I decided we're not doing institutional money, we're just raising capital through the people. So I'm doing my first round of funding, followed up by the second one, which was going to be all, I have shareholders that come in that could spend $200, and some people that spend a lot more. But I figured, and you're going to like this, if I told you that I was funded by BlackRock or Vanguard, what would you tell me?
I'd be kind of, I think that would be sketchy.
Right. So if you're really a people-powered press, shouldn't the people own the product, not the institutions?
For sure.
And that's the reason.
So
we
what's
did
the
it.
largest investor you've got? What capital contribution?
Well, first of all, he's a doctor. Okay, so he's like you. And
I'm not a doctor.
No, but I mean, he's like one of us. He's not somebody that's got $1 trillion net worth.
Yeah.
He doesn't have his own family office. He doesn't run a hedge fund. I have a couple friends that run hedge funds that would be players in this. But he put in. We've raised in a year's time about $500,000. But keep in mind, the average person puts in $1,200 or something like that. But he put in 100.
Wow, he believes.
And, well, not only does he believe. He's in the process of selling his business. He said, once we get this sold, whatever's left, I want to take the rest. It's I'm doing a small offering.
I lost my train of thought. Your investors, how many investors do you have?
340, maybe.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, 340.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Who does the programming? I mean, that platform's not easy to
You mean the programming, like the coding?
Yeah, the coding for the.
I have a gentleman out of North Carolina that's freaking amazing. No, you can't have him.
My hands are full.
And by the way, I have been through at least a half a dozen people, and whenever you talk to database people, they're always the best. They could always build Google better. They could build eBay better. All of them. This is a guy that from the very beginning, he delivers exactly what he's. I mean, and not only that, he will deliver me things that I didn't know I needed. He gives me. I mean, like that good, like scalability good. Like he'll say, oh, and by the way, this is what I did. I'll give you an example. We get about currently over 2,000 news stories a week. 2,000 that have to be looked at. Well, if you break it out every day, it's 300, right? So, and that's an average. There was one day last week or 2 days, we had 1,500 in 2 days. You approve that, okay? So they're coming in. But we have an infrastructure to be able to handle all that. Well, what he built in the back end was, there's television DMAs, right? So, New York's number 1, LA's number 2, Chicago's number 210 of them. We have all the DMAs built into the system, so you can immediately run a story to the Chicago market or the Palm Beach market, which goes all the way up to Sebastian. Boca to Sebastian is where it is. Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, Okeechobee County. He built market editors in. Now, I never even knew I needed it, but he said to me, he goes, oh, and by the way, I built in market editors. You didn't even know it, but you're going to need it. So the way the market editors work, when somebody becomes, and I just picked up a market editor by accident in Richmond, Virginia. The woman will forget more about the news business than me. She's owned her own newspapers, magazines, right? She saw me on a show.
Well, you're on in Richmond right this moment.
What do you mean?
On our radio station there.
We're live?
Well, we will be on Saturday. We will be recorded on
Saturday. So she
will go out in Richmond.
She signs up to be a journalist, then reaches out to me and tells me what her background is. So I'd like to have a conversation. She starts explaining this stuff to me. She's a conservative. And I showed her this, and she's like, what's the parameters for being an editor? And I said, well, I haven't created them yet, but it's got to be somebody like me, that you can't censor somebody, right? I mean, and the way the model works is they get a percentage of the ad revenue of the articles they approve. So if something comes into the, let's say, Richmond, Virginia market, which could be, I don't know how many counties, 20 or 30, they're small, right? That whole market, she's the gatekeeper. So she approves it, that article gets tagged to her account, and so that content creator then starts promoting it on social media, and every time it opens, she gets a piece of the action. So if she approves 100 stories today, she makes money off of 100 stories.
That's incredible.
Oh, so he built it.
Now, what does the editor, what leeway do they have? What is their job specifically?
They're the gatekeeper to the market. And some markets, and he built it so he goes, and plus I could make an unlimited amount of editors in a market, because he says a market like New York, as you scale, you're going to have 2,000 and 3,000 articles a day. One guy can't handle it. So you're going to need more than one editor in that market. So
But what are you editing? What is the goal of the editor?
So content comes in from a content creator.
Right.
They look at it. They don't have to fact check it. They
read it.
They quickly scan it and they say.
Are they scanning it for grammar and spelling?
Not really. No.
Or you say you're not fact checking.
Not fact checking.
What's left?
If you don't do this, I'm going to tell you, everybody's kids' Little League game, they think it's front page national news. Okay. So you have to approve it to the proper subject and the geography.
I see.
So you have to. And by the way,
can't you use AI to do that?
You might be able to. But,
I bet you your editors are.
To me, I think people are always more important because they're going to be able to look at something and say this story is a Little League game. Also, if somebody has an event, let's say it's a church bake sale next Sunday, right? Whatever the date is, it's going to expire. They need to set it to expire. And so, because it's worthless information after that. So I think hands-on is always going to be good. People used to tell me that artificial intelligence is going to replace all the newspapers or all the journalists. No, it's not. AI can only write a story that somebody else already wrote. It can only rewrite it. Mm-hmm. You need to have somebody at the city council meeting. You need to have somebody at the high school football game. So the boots on the ground are what's important. Journalists could use AI as a tool. So we even have AI built into our system. So if somebody wants to use AI to write a story, they could plug in the notes, like here's what happened at the city council meeting. Write me a news story that talks about these things, and it'll spit out a story for them.
That's amazing. So, what about libel and slander? Do you worry about someone who is mad at their girlfriend and they write this news story saying that she slept with 50 guys with a whole football team after the game?
So we haven't had that. I will tell you, 2 weeks ago, I had 3 people send me emails threatening to sue me for content that was not accurate. No slander. So, one of them I thought could have been, and so I'm going to tell you how this went down because it was funny. Whenever somebody sends you an email threatening you, that means the content's accurate. I'm just going to let you know. So I reached out in the Pittsburgh market, Fayetteville, Pennsylvania. I have a couple journalists there, and these are pros. And so the guy that they were reporting on read the story, and it talked about him being arrested for hitting his wife, or battery is what it was, and then he also got a DUI. So I reached out to the journalist, and the journalist said to me, first of all, there was kind of a pause, like they were shocked, and they went, Sam, it's public information. And then
exactly.
They're like,
that's exactly what was going through my head. Just get the police reports.
He goes, we got enough police reports. I mean, we're not like lying.
Yeah, we're not making it up.
And so I looked at, the guy was threatening, and so I said, look, first of all, we're covered under Section 230, which we're just a platform. I said, but I'm going to err on the side of the facts, and these are actually true. And it ended the whole story. Then we had another person in Palm Beach County. There's a organization called Veterans for America First.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So do you know those guys, Stan Fitzgerald and Jared? Okay, so
I do.
What they do is they go out and they vet somebody to make sure they have conservative values. And
yes.
I'm the first point of distribution.
They endorsed me for my race in Georgia for Attorney General.
It was probably Stan Fitzgerald.
Yeah. Stan came to all of our events. I know Jared, he's running for Congress.
Which means we would have published that article because that goes to the geography.
They're in a huge war with Angie Wong.
Angie Wong's the second one. So Angie Wong, they won a case which was a nothing burger. Okay, it was literally a press release that said here was the result of what happened in the court case, and it was published in Politics in Palm Beach County. And she threatened me, and I said, Angie, because I know Angie. I said, Angie, I would be happy to take this down. Please tell me the part of this that's inaccurate. And she couldn't. Want to know why? Because it wasn't like they were slandering. They say we went to court. Here was the result. And that was it. That was the second one. Third one was out of Arizona, and the person who sent me the email said, would you please, remove these because it's, really kind of. And I went, you know what, I will. It was no big deal. There weren't news stories. It was somebody that was basically complaining,
right.
Because maybe they. So the ones who attack are usually the ones who are, we're going to threaten you. And you can't threaten me. I mean, I'm like, it's like sending an email to Elon Musk in the sense that he owns the platform, right?
Yeah.
But I took the liberty of looking into it to see if they were right, because I would want that stuff removed.
For sure.
And nothing happened.
Yep.
By the way, out of all of it.
Well, Sam Anthony, it's a great story. I'm going to follow it, and I want to get on your platform. Anthony, you go over there and sign us up for yournews.com. Thank you. I had it right here.
Yep.
Yournews.com.
Any investors interested, there's an invest button at the bottom. You can read about what we're doing.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.